everyone, welcome to the fourth and final video of this playlist of designing a news feed. So in the previous video we discussed in deep about the designing of a feed publishing method. So in this video we will be looking into the second and the final major component of designing a news feed, that is news feed building or news feed retrieving. So to understand this, let's look into the news feed building. To understand this, we will be discussing this with the help of a flow diagram. So this is a overall view of detailed design of how a news feed retrieval happens. So let's understand each of these components. So basically a user sends a get request to retrieve her news feed or his or her news feed. So first step, so this is a get request. So the request looks like this, and whenever the user opens an application using this CDN, we get the static content and the media, images, videos, etc. to fulfill or fill up the application which the user is using basically. And after that, whenever user sends the get request to fetch his or her feed, so it first goes to the load balancer. So first is user makes a get request. Second, the request is forwarded to the load balancer. The load balancer, depending on the traffic, distributes the request to the particular web server. So web server, what it does, we have discussed in the previous video, it authenticates the user and it also rate limits depending on the number of requests which he has, that is preset or predefined. And it calls the newsfeed. The main function of the web server is it interacts with the newsfeed service to fetch the latest post, the latest content in the newsfeed cache. So newsfeed service, what it does, so after user makes a get request, we go to a load balancer. Load balancer distributes the traffic to the web server, and web server in turn calls the newsfeed service, calls this newsfeed service here to fetch the newsfeed cache or basically the contents. So a user's newsfeed is basically more than just a list of feed IDs. It contains username, profile, picture, and all those related information for a particular user. Thus the newsfeed service, what it does, it fetches the complete user and the post objects from cache or database depending upon the cache hit or miss, and fully construct the newsfeed service. And once the newsfeed has been fully constructed, and it is returned in JSON format to the client for rendering. So basically we get a JSON format response of this get request after this newsfeed service has retrieved information from the newsfeed cache and populated it into the JSON. So this is an overall overview of how a newsfeed retrieval happens. So basically, if we go or look into again how this happens, is like we make a get request, the request goes to a load balancer. Depending on the traffic, it goes to a web server, and then the web server in turn forwards the request to the newsfeed service. So remember, this newsfeed cache had contents like post ID and the user ID, right? So for this particular user, it checks the user database or cache to retrieve the list of friends. From there, it goes to the newsfeed cache. From their newsfeed cache, it gets the post ID and the user ID, returns the request to all those databases, gets the recent post IDs corresponding to this user ID for that particular user who has made the request. So these are basically his friends or followers IDs. And after that, all the information has been retrieved. The newsfeed service returns this data in form of JSON to the requesting client to render the service or render the application. So this is a method how newsfeed retrieval happens. And another is like we have cache architecture, which is also important for a newsfeed system. We will be discussing that thing also here. So cache architecture. So this cache architecture can be divided into 5 layers. So first is like we have newsfeed. So this is basically, it stores the IDs or the newsfeed IDs. It stores the newsfeed IDs. So basically there is basically the newsfeed which newsfeed cache to send the post ID or user ID. So this is first layer. Then we have the content. So every post data, it contains whole the every post data. It stores every post data, and popular content is stored in hot cache also. So here we have also in this layer a hot cache. So popular contents are stored in this hot cache. Third, what we have is a social graph. So social graph is like, as you see in the graph database also, it stores the user relationship data, the relationship between two users, whether he or she is in the closed friend list or he or she has been muted, and all those their recommendations to match their recommendation and show things related to them. So that stores the user relationship data. So this is the third layer of the cache. Fourth we have is action. So social graph is basically followers and following data and the relationship between them. Fourth layer is action. In action, what we have, it stores information whether a user liked a post, replied to a post, or took other actions on the post, like to hide that post or report that post, etc. So it stores information like liked or replied or any other action he has taken on that particular post. And the fifth layer and the final layer which we have is the counters. So counters, it stores like the number of likes to a particular post or the number of replies to a particular post, and various other counters like number of shares and number of followers and following. So this is a numerical value. So like counter, or we have reply counter and other followers or following, etc. So this is very important. Cache is actually extremely important for a newsfeed system for fast retrieval and to get the information and to feed the newsfeed of a particular user very fast. So this is overall the methods in which we design a newsfeed. And like any system design interview, there is no perfect way to design a system. Depending on the interviewer's requirements or the company's requirements, you can modify or discuss with the interviewer further to dive into details about designing a newsfeed system. So thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for more such interesting videos on system design.